Sinn Féin for bringing forward this motion today to allow us another opportunity to place the spotlight on the systemic failures within our CAMHS health service. I want to refer first of all to something noted in the motion about 140 lost cases in just one team, which no doubt across all teams adds up to hundreds of lost cases nationwide. If I was a patient or a parent or guardian of a patient whose case was lost somewhere amongst the dense overgrowth of the HSE bureaucracy, I'd want answers and I'd want accountability. Has the Minister identified how these cases were lost, or are the failures in the system still present which would allow continued losing of cases? Has the Minister identified what individuals were responsible for these errors, and have policies and procedures been put in place to ensure that such errors don't reoccur? Has anyone been disciplined or held accountable for these mistakes? Now, I hope, Ministers, in response to the motion, that you might provide some answers to those questions, but since they relate to responsibility and accountability, I am fearful that there will just be become rhetorical questions that will go unanswered. Now, 1 year ago, I had the opportunity to speak on a Sinn Féin motion relating to child and adolescent mental health services, and on that occasion I highlighted that I believed in a general apathy or lacklustre attitude towards actual solving these problems. And to be fair, Minister, that is mainly the continuous representation from the floor that you took action and you ordered the review. So I would say that compared to the lack of staffing, or to try and highlight the lack of staffing, I compared it to, and I'll quote it again, the Lewis, Dublin Bus or Irish Rail would be in chaos every morning if we did not have enough drivers. A schoolroom would struggle to function if it didn't have enough teachers, and our ambulance service would fail if we didn't have enough crew members. Yet when we do not have the right staffing levels in CAMHS, it does not hit the headlines like it would for these services. In 2020, the Government supported a motion from the regional group to protect mental health services, but unfortunately little has been done in the interim to address the issues highlighted with CAMHS services. The HSE mismanagement of CAMHS is leaving vulnerable children at heightened risk of mental health difficulties. The current system is not fit for purpose. Children and their families are being tossed aside, and inevitably some of these families will end up presenting their children to emergency departments somewhere following an attempt to take their own lives. This is a very difficult thing to say, but it is the reality of what happens when the proper services are absent. Some of the stories I've heard about our services amount, in my mind, to neglect, and it must be rectified. One thing that does worry me about this motion is the call to legislate to prevent children from being placed in adult wards. And unfortunately, with the current state of affairs, where there's no paediatric ward places available, the only option is to put a child into an adult ward. And the reality has to be recognised, regardless of how less than optimal it might be, that at least care of some description, even if it is less than ideal, an ideal setting, is surely more useful than no care at all. I have great sympathy for those who are having to make these decisions in our hospitals on a daily basis, and I would not like to see their job hamstrung by legislation which might prevent some sort of care being administered. So whilst I agree with the principle of what the motion calls for here, it would come down in such a case to scrutiny of the detail of how that would operate in reality, or what exceptions would be made in exceptional circumstances. And the motion also calls on the Government to develop a joined-up proactive and comprehensive health and social care workforce strategy to increase education places and training opportunities between the Department of Health and the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, the HSE regional health areas, hospital groups and the higher education institutions. This is absolutely crucial. We can only continue to successfully expand mental health services if we have the proper qualified personnel to fill the roles. This starts with a long-term strategy to have sufficient places in college courses and opportunities for people to upskill in these areas. Almost every CAMHS related issue comes back in some shape or form to staffing. Staff turnover and inability to get staff in the first place are preventing services from operating as they should. Now, I've highlighted many times that problem, and in County Wexford we're trying to source a paediatric dietitian and as well for the child psychologists. We're always just one resignation away from having to go months, if not years, without vitally filled posts. I don't have much time, Minister, but yesterday I provided the details for an 8-year-old boy whose guardians have been told that he does not meet the criteria, despite being referred by his family doctor 3 times to CAMHS. Now, I appreciate that the Minister's department is looking into this, but this family need a timely answer, and also an answer as to who has made this decision without even seeing this young man. It would mean he is on no waiting list, but clearly needs immediate attention. And I am mindful of the issue and that has arisen in the media at the weekend. And what I caution both ministers to be mindful of is that not meeting the criteria does not in the future get declared as a strategy to keep numbers off waiting lists, as I'd regard that as an intent to cause harm, and very, very serious indeed. 15 children with eating disorders in Wexford currently with no dietitian is extremely disturbing. These are children, and you and I, both of you and I are parents, and when we hear figures, they're figures, but these are children. They could be your children and mine, but they are individuals, all meaningful individuals who need care and attention. I put my faith in both of you.